Take away, my friend.
There you go, thank you. All right. Talk about negotiations, let's talk about multiple offers. Let's do this, all right. This. All right. Come on in, come on in. Just getting started. Here we go. Ready? Okay. I don't really need to introduce myself, do I? Do I? Do I? No?
Maybe.
Yes, I do?
Nobody.
Okay, well, I'm gonna introduce myself very, very quickly, since I know anyway, but you never know who's watching. So, my name is Ron Lugashi. I'm with the Zamir Group, Keller Williams Town Life, technically, right? Yeah, we have our own mega agent office in Fairlawn, New Jersey. So we actually are I'm part of the top team in the entire NGMLS for the last 6 years. I'm a buyer's agent on that team. And of course, what that allows me to do is, well, to share those experiences from all those meetings, all those conversations, all those times I spoke, met with buyers, all that wisdom, knowledge to share with you guys, right? To help you guys shorten your learning curve, make you guys better, faster. So that's the goal for today, to provide you guys as much value as possibly can. Even if you've heard this spiel before, repetition is the key to mastery. We don't just listen to something once, we actually listen over and over and over again, and that makes us better, right? So we're going to talk multiple offers, negotiations. Let's get into it. Let's go back. So first thing in negotiations, when we're submitting an offer, or even before we submit an offer, we have to communicate these strategies, the best path forward to our clients. We have to understand something that while it's not a skill that they told us that we need to improve upon when we first got our real estate license, negotiation skills is key to being a better agent, right? So the agents with improved or a high level of negotiation skills are just better agents, right? Because they provide value to our clients. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about. We're always looking to provide as much value proposition as we possibly can to our clients as a buyer, as a listing agent too. Negotiation skill goes a long way. Now, when we're talking about strengthening our offers in multiple offer situations, again, that's part of negotiation skills, and we have to be able to communicate all of that to our clients. So let's start with the first slide in front of us. When we're talking about negotiations, they're reacting versus responding. Those are two very different things. Our buyers and also agents themselves, what they tend to do is they tend to react. Now, what is a reaction? A reaction is an emotional response, right? This is not an emotional transaction, it's a business transaction. But what tends to happen, buyers, sellers, investors, renters, and agents, they tend to respond it's an emotional response. So there is reaction. And it's not necessarily the best option forward. Now, compared to a response, a response is more strategic. It's thought out. It's communicated very clearly. It gets everybody on the same page. There's no emotion tied to it. And while it's difficult to do, it's almost impossible, I think, to have what we aim, or the ultimate goal is to have no emotions involved in the transaction. It's a business transaction. So what we're looking to do as agents is to not just respond, but also communicate clear strategy to our clients. So we want to lower our heart rate. We want to take a deep breath, take a step back, take it easy, calm down. Everything's going to be okay. Just look at all the facts, look at the scenario, because every scenario is different. Every situation is different, right? And then formulate the best strategy forward. Now, when we're talking about responding, are we again, it's our buyers. We have to respond to the other agent. We have to respond to our buyers. How we respond, there's always a better way. So we always have to kind of think about all the facts, take into account all the factors, and then say, okay, these are the best options forward. We're going to communicate that to our clients, or we're going to think about that before we respond back to the other agent, and then it will benefit our clients. Any questions so far about what I'm saying, or does it kind of make sense where you don't want to necessarily let your ego get in the way and maybe make a bad move, maybe call an agent before you're supposed to, or call a client before you're supposed to, before you have all the information, or before maybe too quickly. You can very easily lose leverage. Very easily lose leverage by saying something you're not supposed to say, by doing something you're not supposed to do, and that doesn't necessarily benefit you or your clients.
But what if they call you? So like you didn't have time to, you want to answer the phone call, so you didn't have time to, to put yourself back in.
So you could also not answer the phone. You can let it go to voicemail, see what they're calling about, then get back to them. You can also, when they call you and they ask you a question, I have another call, let me call you right back. Well, again, these are negotiation skills. You already know what they called about. You're going to call them right back after you have time to think about what the best response to whatever they called about.
It's not respond us. If that time is enough,
so she's saying if they do call you and you don't know what it's about, but all of a sudden you can let it go to voicemail, you can call you. There's negotiation tactics to obtain information, to gain leverage. Our job is to gain, again, there's two parties, right? There's the buyer side and the seller side. There's always two sides to a transaction. And the other side is always looking to obtain leverage over the other. And that's when we're talking about negotiation skills, these small little tactics. Again, the things we do and the things we say go a long way in benefiting our clients. So just, as a listing agent, just by answering your phone, you can promote your client's best interest. From a buyer's agent standpoint, we say it all the time, just pick up the phone, ask questions. There's no limitation on what questions we can ask the listing agent, ask questions. So the agents that don't pick up the phone, are they promoting their buyer's best interest? The answer is no, of course not. So it's a part of what we're supposed to be doing. It's our job description to provide value to our clients. We can do it through negotiation skill. A lot of clients, they just don't have, or a lot of agents, I'm sorry, don't have the ability or a high level of ability when it comes to negotiations. So it's always a work in progress. There's always also room for improvement, right?
Which side is the more important? The seller agent side is the.
They're both important. I can tell you.
No, important. What is the which side? I think is the agent side is the. We can use more negotiation skills.
Oh, actually, what you're referring to is the scenario. No, every scenario is different.
Oh,
every transaction is different. There are different factors at play. You're dealing with a different person, a different scenario, a different property. The properties are obviously a different condition, different size, different locations, different pricing strategies, listing strategies. There's so many different moving parts. You have to take, as I said before, you have to take everything into account and then decide what the best way forward is.
On the table,
there's always moving parts. Yeah, so I can give you just a very generic scenario. Yet every scenario is different. Yeah, it's always going to be different. And just when you think you've seen it all, surprise, like there's going to be something new.
Yeah.
So there's always surprises in transactions. I don't even know if, for those on Zoom, just I guess I'm not so good at paying attention to the chat. So sometimes it's just better unmute yourself and ask a question if you have something to say or something to ask. Okay, guys. Anything else about that before I move on?
So I will call and then come back and then you back.
Sure. Yeah, that's just it's a tactic. We're talking about obtaining leverage.
Right.
You obtain the information. You don't know exactly what the best response is, but it doesn't mean you can't say, I'll call you right back. Listen, I'm in a meeting, I'll call you right back. I have another call, I'll call you right back. You know what they're calling about. Now you can formulate a response and call them back.
We listen first and we say I have a call.
You could, yeah. It's just a way of obtaining leverage. Because human beings are not, our brains are not wired to multitask. All right, and we don't always have the best response in a given moment.
Okay.
Especially if I'm doing stuff. If I'm driving, for instance, or I'm talking to someone in the middle of a conversation, I get a phone call. My brain is distracted. I'm not focused on this one thing. So to just take a second, be present, and consider all the facts and then be focused on this one thing, you're more likely to say and do the right thing.
Okay. It's possible to, when we tax back or taxing.
Yeah, so texting is a tool to obtain information, obtain leverage. Also for communication. Communication skills are very important. The higher level communication skills you have, it'll benefit you as an agent as far as conversion skill. So I think it's a different discussion at this point, but it's advantageous to actually have a high level of communication, even when things go bad. By the way, even when things are not good, to make that hard call, it's important in any transaction, because to keep if you have everybody on the same page, good or bad, it is more likely to get the closing table. I think if something's not going well and you're saying, you know what, I'm not going to tell the other side, I think it increases the likelihood that this is not going to closing table. I think that there's a lot of emotion. Again, it goes back to what I said before. There's a lot of emotion involved in transactions. Not that there should be, but yet there is naturally. And there's anxiety on both sides, both the buyers and the sellers. And what lowers anxiety, frustration, is information. The buyers, sellers, investors, renters, whatever we're talking about, they feel more comfortable when they know what's going on, when they know what happens next. So get everybody on the same page always, good or bad. Get everybody on the same page. Have those conversations. So just because the underwriter flagged a condition, let the other side know. Hey, listen, they just flagged something last minute. The lender says, I spoke to the lender, I spoke to the title company, let them know what's going on. Don't assume that people know exactly what's going on. They don't, right? We're talking about the inspection contingency. Let them know, right? Let the other party know, hey, listen, the asbestos on the insulation piping, the asbestos on the piping is a concern. Let them know before they get the inspection report. Let them know there's signage of termites. Communication is really, really important, especially if we want to get things moving forward, right? Because if 9 out of 10 homes have signage of termite, they could just very well tell you, oh, you know what? They got a treatment a year ago. I'll get you the documentation. You're done. Like, you're good. In advance, it's one less thing to worry about. You can go back to your client and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, they've already done a termite treatment. We're good to go. They're going to send us the documentation. Like, you're good. So it's important to make sure that you're communicating at a very high level. Yet, I think it's also important to mention, don't do anything that will lose leverage. It's always about, leverage. That's what negotiations are about. There's always compromise. There's never one that's a winner, a complete winner, and a complete loser. We're going to try to make it a win-win. Do they have the rules here? No. It's part of our, it's part of our culture to, win-win or no deal, right? So, and I think when we're talking about win-wins, it requires compromise from both parties. It doesn't have to be equal compromise. That's the one thing that we forget. So that's where leverage comes in. All right, we're talking a lot about this. I just want to move on so we're not running out of time, because Judith does have a class right after me about contracts. So I'm just going to plug it in. If you need some help with submitting offers, she's going to go over that paperwork, and it'll benefit anybody that wants to strengthen, I guess, their offer writing skills, right? Let's keep going. Open-ended questions is a very good tool in obtaining information. Right? We're talking about leverage, we're talking about negotiation skills. These are not yes/no questions, right? They're not yes/no questions. So, what are we looking for? What kind of questions? How do they appear in a transaction? How do they appear with buyers? How do they appear with other agents? We're talking about buyers, and we're doing needs analysis, and we're looking to discover what they're looking for. What's important to you? It's not a yes/no question. Right? They're going to tell us, what's the motivation for the move? Oh, I hate my landlord. Okay, so those are open-ended questions. Well, it's no different with the agents too, right? What's important to, other than price, what's important to the seller? It's not a yes, no question. We're obtaining a lot of information. Not all agents will provide you the information, yet many will. So that's why we ask, because if you don't ask, you won't get it all. You know, what's the seller's preferred closing date? Open-ended question.
We waiting the other side speaking and we listening.
Yeah, listening. So, and I love that you said that. The most, I guess, one of the most best skills for us to learn or to utilize is listening. Now, listening is known as or thought of as a passive skill, right? It's probably the most active skill there is. Let the other person talk. Many. I'm just gonna say people because they're talking about buyers, sellers, and agents. Just love to hear themselves talk, right? Yet, what will benefit us the most is to listen. Now, I guess you can call it there's a conception out there that whoever's talking the most controls the conversation. That just isn't true. The one who's asking more questions controls the conversation, leads the conversation. So if you're the one that's asking the questions, you're leading the conversation. It doesn't matter who talks more, the one who asks more questions.
Yes, good, I understand. For the what's going on.
Yeah, so when
Which side we want to
when I say, I would use the word lead, because especially when we're talking about our buyers, our clients, our sellers, we're leading them with questions. We're taking them exactly where we want to take them with questions. And it's no different with anybody else. So
not important who's more speaking, who's the
one that's asking you more questions?
driving to,
Correct.
you know,
Yeah, and there's a game that we used to play. It's you know, we can do it with listings, we can do it with buyers, where we would hand each other just any item. You know, I would say, you know, so you know, what's important to you, and then you say, you know, well, I'd like this, and that. You have to end with a question, right? So you're going back and forth, and we're only asking each other questions, and it's kind of script practice, right? Because we're preparing ourselves for those scenarios where we have to ask questions. Because if we're not asking questions, then I don't think we're progressing in the right direction. We're in limbo. We're just standing still.
Other side more feeling, oh, this agent listened to more and he understand what I am wanted.
Not true. I mean, calling or having conversations with other agents or buyers or sellers or anybody, just as human beings, that's how we connect, right? So if you're the agent that's reaching out to that listing agent and you're connecting, it gives you an opportunity to increase likability, improve rapport, relationship, connect, all that fun stuff. And it does benefit you and your client because it makes you memorable, right? And all of a sudden, there's a connection compared to where with other agents that are just submitting their offers, there's no connection. So you definitely want to, you know, reach out to the other agents. It'll benefit you and your clients in any scenario, one-on-one or multiple offers. Yes? Wonderful. Let's keep going because we're running out of time. We're going to spend pretty much the rest of the time, the next 40-ish, 35 minutes on this slide. Because if we're talking about multiple offer situations where it is common in today's market, right? We're in a very strong seller's market. It's still very competitive. We have short supply. We still have plenty of buyers. While there's a decrease in activity for buyers, we are still seeing multiple offer scenarios. Well, how do we strengthen our offer? And that is the name of the game. The name of the game is strength of offer. It is not highest offer. You can be the highest offer. Doesn't mean you're going to get your offers accepted. The name of the game is strength of offer, right? So how do we strengthen our offer? Well, let's talk about it. You have the list in front of you. Obviously, that's not everything, but it's most of it. Relationship with agent is at the very top. And let's just say, Hava, you're the listing agent, right? And you know, we've done business together, and you priced a property really well, and you have 6 offers on the property, and top 2 offers. I'm one of them. There's another agent. You don't know this agent. You don't know their lender. You do know me. You know my lender. You know my attorney. And you know I'm going to get this. You know I prepare my buyers really well. And you know I'm going to get this finish line no matter what. If they're very comparable offers, which one are you going to encourage your sellers to accept?
For the, we looking top two offers?
Yeah, top two offers. The other, the one offer is an agent you don't know, that, let's say they're from Princeton, and you don't know their lender, and the other agent is me,
Mhm.
and we've done business together, and you know, I do what I say what I do. You know, my
Okay.
lenders, my attorneys,
Mhm.
you know, when it gets to close.
We can do the, you know, we know.
Yeah, so you're going to encourage my offer. So that means that relationship with agent does go a long way in strengthening the offer. Now, even as a new agent, you can create a relationship. We just said it before. How do you create a relationship with somebody? Well, you connect, you pick up the phone,
Yes.
right? You want to be better than 90% of the agents out there, just do that one thing, just pick up the phone. Now, how do I know that 90%? Because 9 out of 10 agents don't pick up the phone and call the listing agent to ask questions. They just don't. I know that because we have a lot of listings, do 100 listings a year, and many of them are multiple offer scenarios. The majority of agents don't pick up the phone. So you want to be better than the majority of buyers agents out there, just pick up the phone. Ask questions. Just do that one simple thing, you will be better than the majority of agents out there. Right? And there's no limitation on what questions we can ask. Right? You want to ask them where you need to be in order to obtain, how many offers, whatever, you know, whatever questions you want to ask, you can ask. There's no limitation on the buyer's agent. Now, I'll share with you that many listing agents may or may not share that information with you, yet many will. And some of them will even go tell you their life story and the seller's life story and give you all the information in the world. And it does give you an opportunity to also build rapport, connect with that agent, and that is a type of relationship, and it does benefit you and your client, right? Because, you know, if they like you, there's likability, and they like the way you communicate, it goes a long way in strengthening your offer. So it does go. It is important. There's something in the chat. Yeah. What is the best answer? Would be the seller who is not believing in any realtors, even thinking what job a realtor would be doing good to sell his house. Even $60,000 kitchen would do better than it. So we're talking about changing perception. In changing perception, I'm gonna reference back to asking questions. So telling stories and asking questions is the best way to change perception. I'm not going to convince somebody or change their perception by talking. It's not going to happen. Some people are very set on the way they think, and you're not necessarily going to change their minds by talking. So we have to ask questions and tell stories. So, and communicate value proposition. It goes back to, okay, well, what does the public, what does the consumer think when they hear the word real estate agent? They think that they're all the same, right? Now it's our job to educate them. It's our job to change the perception, and we have to communicate value. If we don't communicate value, then we're never going to change their perception. They have to see the value, they have to feel the value, and they also have to become self-aware. You can only increase their self-awareness when you're asking questions. So when I give them the examples, or you know how much necessarily you sell compared to your traditional agent, and you can communicate to them your pricing strategy, your listing strategy, your marketing strategy, and how you go about and how you're different than your traditional agent, that will help change their perception. Right? We can only do that by communicating value stories and asking questions. You're not just gonna walk in and change somebody's perception that easily. So now we could advise. You also have to understand that you can't be tied to the outcome. You have to be a consultant and advisor, not a salesperson. Yes, we're in the sales business. We are salespeople. That's not necessarily the approach that you need to take. I always encourage agents to actually take the approach of being the advisor, being the consultant, being the leader in that relationship, providing them with the best options forward. That's what advisors do, and then having them select the best option forward. Right? So you can advise them, say, I recommend doing this, this, and this. They may or may not agree that we're going to advise them that way. So there are different ways. It depends on the scenario. I wouldn't advise anybody nowadays in today's market conditions to update a bathroom or kitchen. You don't get a return on that on your money. So it doesn't make sense.
Okay, not,
No, you wanna-
put the change to the,
Just because you put 60,000 doesn't mean you get 60,000 back, so why would you do that?
yeah, because sometimes the buyer doesn't like the debt style. Sometimes,
Yeah, you may wanna paint your whole house,
yeah.
yet most buyers are gonna come in and paint the whole house anyway. Especially considering the competitive environment that we're in,
Mhm.
they're gonna concede that they're gonna give that up, and we're about to get into that. So, the next one on this list is expertise, right? How does expertise go? And it also speaks to when speaking to sellers, how does expertise benefit us? How does it improve our conversion? How does it strengthen our offers in these types of situations? How does it do that? Well, if we're walking to any particular home, whether it's for a listing or for a buyer, and we're an expert in that niche, what happens? We know what that buyer is willing to pay, what any buyer is willing to pay for that specific type of product. So you walk into a listing, they may think their house is worth $1 million, and it's only an $800,000 home. That may we're going to communicate that to them. Hey, listen, I understand why you may think this property is worth $1 million, yet, and not a buyer is only willing to pay X for it, and they may not like it. That's your professional opinion. We are professional, are we not? We are providing professional opinions. Now, if they don't accept it, fine. I'm going to have that conversation with them, and we're going to go back to their motivation. Their motivation level may be very, very low. They may not need to move. I can guarantee you, and when they need to move, that sense of urgency goes up. They're more acceptable. If they need to be out of that house by next month, they're going to be a little bit more accepting to those, to the realistic prices or price reductions, depending on your strategy. There's no right or wrong. Again, as an agent, you can pick and choose your listing strategy and your pricing strategy. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then that means you don't have one. Right? I think that's a different class and a different conversation. Yes, there is something called pricing strategy. There's something called listing strategy, and there's something called marketing strategy and negotiation strategy. There's always strategy. The question is, what's yours? You don't have to. Yours doesn't have to be mine. Mine doesn't have to be yours. It's whatever works for you. If you're the type of agent that wants to underprice it, great. Once you want to price it correctly, wonderful. You want to overprice it, fine. I'm not saying there's any right or wrong. I'm saying there's always better. What's the best way forward? Expertise goes a long way when we know our stuff. When we don't know our stuff, then we're kind of like just, we're in the wind, right? We don't know. We're just kind of guessing. So it doesn't benefit us or our clients. So expertise goes a long way in strengthening our offers. When we're confident, we can speak with confidence. Our agents are more likely to become agreeable. Yes? So how do we gain expertise? How do we gain expertise? As agents.
Go in the market,
Yeah, so how do you get to know the market?
go and see houses.
Oh, you know what? It's that easy. It's really that easy. You want to be an expert in the inventory? Go see the inventory. Oh, but I look at it online. Yeah, it's not the same. Seeing pictures online is not the same as physically seeing a home. We know that. We know that for a fact. It's not the same. Now, what does it do if there's 12 homes or 20 homes on the market and you've physically seen every single one? What does that do to your confidence level? What does that do to your confidence level? It increases your confidence level. Great. What does that increase in confidence level do to the conversations that you're having? Are they higher quality conversations? Are you converting at a much higher level? Yeah, of course you are. You see how one affects the other? It's a domino effect. So if you want to improve your conversion, improve your confidence level, you want to improve your confidence level, just go see some homes. Now, when I say that, it's like, oh, okay, that's easy. Yet, how many agents actually do that?
Is we can see the without
Yes, you can
client,
preview homes. I preview homes all the time.
we can see
You
the
can schedule a preview. Yes, you can.
without client.
Yes, you can preview homes. I preview homes all the time.
Oh. Okay.
Go to the open houses. Go to the broker opens. Set the preview. Make sure you see all the inventory.
Okay.
And I have those agents say, well, what if? I was like, well, yeah, I don't do what if. I do what is. Well, what if we can't get to a house? I was like, okay, so you can't get to a house. What about the rest of them? So there's 20 homes. Go see the other 19. I think that as human beings, we tend to get caught up on the one exception. Yeah, no, it's the exception to the rule. for the most part, you can go see every single home. So the agent needs to be present, or the seller needs to be home, or allow access, or they have to take the dog out for a walk. Fine, those are exceptions, and there's still ways around those exceptions. So there's always a solution. Again, I always think that instead of focusing on the negative, what's wrong, just ask yourself one question: what's the best way forward? And it's always, instead of getting stuck, because you do get stuck. You focus on the negative, you focus on the past. Focus on forward, move forward, always move forward. Don't get stuck. What's the best way forward? Don't find fault, find solution. We are not fault finders, we are solution finders. Right? We are not deal breakers, we are deal makers.
Maker.
Those are the successful agents.
Deal maker.
Yeah, you are deal makers, you are solution finders, you are go-getters, you are going to get it done. Whatever challenge is in your way, you're going to overcome it. It's not a brick wall, it's a speedball. There's always at least 3 solutions to every problem. Every challenge, every issue always has solutions. Question is, which is the best one for them? Yes or yes? Okay, great. Let's talk about concessions. Yeah, because we have time, like 20 minutes. Now, when we're talking about conceding something, it's not the sellers that are giving something up, it's the buyers that are giving up. What are the buyers giving up to strengthen their offers?
Like the wooden inspection.
That's right. That's usually the first thing out the window, right? To strengthen an offer, the buyer will say, buyer to purchase as is, with the exception of structural, environmental, health, safety, mechanical, whatever you want to put in there, you can. There are some parts of like in central Jersey, Morris County, Essex County, I don't know, I would call that central. There's always an argument what's central and what's north and what's south and whatever. But yet, in Essex and Morris County, they're waiving their inspection. It's not Bergen County, that's not necessarily the case. Passaic County, it's not necessarily the case. We don't have to do that here. The craziness is not to that degree, it hasn't been. Yet what we're doing to strengthen our offers, buyer to purchase as is the exception of ... Right? Now, what does that mean? Do the clients know what that means? The buyers know what that means. Do they know what that means? No, we do this day in and day out. They don't do this day in and day out, right? So we have to educate them, we have to explain to them what that means. Now, do we have the ability to communicate it if we don't know what that means? Because we've got to educate ourselves first, right? And many agents, they'll just wait for the scenario to unfold, and then they'll say, okay, I'll learn when that may become a missed opportunity because you didn't prepare.
Yes.
If we are prepared for opportunities, they're more likely to convert. If we are not prepared for opportunities that present themselves, there's an increased likelihood that they're going to become a missed opportunity. That's not necessarily what we want. So we're going to educate ourselves, because I do know that if we don't know the buying process, we can't communicate the buying process. If we don't know how to strengthen offers, we cannot communicate how to strengthen offers. If we don't know the market conditions, we can't communicate the market conditions. So what are we doing when we're not on appointments? We're educating ourselves, we're improving our skill set by getting familiar with the market conditions, by getting familiar with the process, by getting familiar with how to strengthen offers. That's why we're here today, right? That's what we're talking about. So you can't give what you don't have. I can't give you something I don't have.
Yes.
So what are we doing? We're educating ourselves so that we can give more. Learn more so you can give more.
Learn.
So what does it mean with inspection?
So of course, when we're talking about environmental, in Bergen County, the original heat source for many of these homes was oil, right? Oil is a heat source. So there's something called an abandoned underground tank. We're going to recommend they do oil tank sweeps. I always like to decrease their level of anxiety by letting them know, hey, listen, Mr. and Mrs. Spire, this is a non-issue for us. It's a non-issue for you as a buyer. Don't worry about it. Now, I don't want to say don't worry about it, because when you say don't think of a dog, you think of a dog. When I say don't worry, you worry. Right, so I refrain from saying those things. Don't do this, don't do that. So it's a non. That's why I say it's a non-issue for you as a buyer. Can I explain? And they say, yeah, sure, fine. Well, what happens is, we have our inspection contingency, and what it means when you say as is the exception environmental, let's just say theoretically we do an oil tank sweep, we find a tank at the ground, something's discovered, what happens? Well, the seller is going to be responsible for removal and remediation if needed. And we're going to close with this all cleared up. And that's why I say it's a non-issue for user buyer. That's it, period. Now they've calmed down, they understand, okay, great. Seller's going to take care of it if there's any issues, we're still going to close. If there may be a delay in the closing, yeah, we're still going to close. That's the worst thing that can happen, right? Let's just say theoretically, worst case scenario, there's a contamination. They have to remediate it. It's going to take a few extra weeks, but we'll close. Right? You have to schedule the removal. The town needs to, you have to wait for the results to come in. The town needs to give the all clear, close out the permit. We used to get the no further action on the inland pay letters. We don't have to do that anymore. Once they close out the permit, we're good to go. So it's, you can still close, by the way, if it's not completed. You close with an escrow. There's always solutions, right? Let's just say they have to move. I've had a client that had to get out of his apartment. There's another tenant moving in. Yeah, so we closed. There was a leak. We held a very large escrow. They took care of it. They released the escrow. We're done. There's always a solution. Yes? Yes. Okay.
But the extra the money, what did you do? What did you do with them?
Escrows. Escrow is always a good solution if there's an issue.
With extra
If
money?
if a repair has not been made, and you have to close, do an escrow. Right? Or come to agreement on a credit. That's also another solution, right? There's always a solution. The question is, let's come to agreement on the best solution. The best, you want it to be fair. It doesn't have to be completely fair.
How much around the tank remove or something?
Tank removals are not expensive. Tank removals in general, they tend to, if they're just an open section under grass, $1,600 to $1,800. If it's under a driveway, under concrete in the backyard, hard to get to, it's a little bit more. The $2,500, $3,000. Yet it's doable. Most sellers can afford it. The biggest challenge is the tanks or tank leaks are actually not. I would think that septic tanks that haven't been addressed in decades and they have leaks and they become cesspools, those are bigger headaches.
Okay.
Yeah, those are definitely bigger headaches. In a lot of these towns that have septic and they don't have municipal sewer, because you cannot close on the property because the town won't issue the CO, the final CO, if everything's not in order. And let's just say they have to replace the whole tank, they have to do the cleaning, $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. Seller doesn't have it, now we have a problem. Now there's still a solution. Maybe you can get a company that will bill through escrow. Yet there's not that many companies that'll do it. Maybe you can provide them a deposit and they'll bill through escrow on the difference. Again, there's always a solution, but it becomes more problematic because of the amounts of money that we're talking about. If there is a leak and it hits the water table, like it'd be 150,000. Like it could be crazy. So again, those are rare exceptions, right? We're talking about the exceptions. I don't like to talk about the exceptions. It doesn't happen that often. When they pop up, let's talk about the solutions. But don't. You want to talk about worst case scenarios, you don't want to take it to extremes. It just starts scaring people like that.
Is anything about the percentages that you says?
Oh yeah, it's in the buyer consultation.
No. I am asking the oil tank, is there more this area or this area, something?
Well, the whole county as a whole, the original heat source was oil. On the older section, you may have coal. Yet if it's usually in the 60s on, they started installing gas. So there was never an oil tank to begin with. Yet the majority of Bergen County was built well before the 60s, the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s. The majority of the county was built up. So that's one. Obviously, asbestos installation, flooring, could even be siding, APHIS, stucco on the walls. It could be radon. Water quality issues. There's a lot of environment things fit under basically everything that you can think of fits under the categories structural or environmental or health issues. All right, mechanical, we're talking about the heating and the cooling. And here's what I have conversation with agents all the time. If the heating or the cooling is not working prior to closing, are you closing? No, listen, if the heating's working during the home inspection and the heating's not working when you're closing, well, they need to fix it. They need to fix it. So it's like, you don't want to get caught up. You still have an inspection contingency and everything still needs to be in the same condition you saw after before the inspection, after the inspection, it still needs to be in the same condition. If something goes wrong, you need to either fix it or come to agreement with the credit, right? It needs to be addressed. So like, people worry too much. This process in New Jersey is a very pro-buyer process. It is a very pro-buyer process. So they have a lot of protections. Inspection contingencies are definitely one of them. So even when you say as is, you still have your inspection contingency in place. Okay? That means you can still cancel the deal. So let's keep going because we're running out of time. We got 15 minutes. What's the other thing that they're conceding? What else are they giving up? The buyers to strengthen the offer, the appraisal, right? Many times you could be the highest offer, yet if you're not limiting or waiving your appraisal contingency, you're still having an appraisal. You're limiting the contingency if there's an issue. You're not obtaining this house. You're not right. You just went through it. It's one of those things that in the current market conditions, you have to be competitive in order to compete at a very high level. You have to limit or waive your appraisal contingencies. That's still going on. And you can do it to different degrees. Some buyers don't have the ability to do it. Some buyers do. Now, we always, again, have to communicate. They don't know. They don't do this day in and day out. We have to communicate to them what the worst case scenario is, what the best case scenario is, so they're more agreeable to it. Terms. The simplest of terms is the closing date, right? You can strengthen your offer by just asking the listing agent, hey, Mr. Mrs. Listing Agent, what is your seller's preferred closing date? Simple question. I can share with you, I've never had a listing agent tell me none of your business. They always said, well, if they had it their way, they'd have all 3 offers, 4 offers, 5 offers, whatever, have the same closing date on the offers, right? So again, going back to what we said before, it's a skill that it's a very small action that will make you better than the majority of agents. Just pick up the phone, and a lot of these require you to pick up the phone, and we're about to get into it. The escalation clause is the next one on this list. It's a tool. It's a tool that's actually rarely used in real estate. It's seldomly used in real estate. I found that typically it's used when you just have no idea where this is going. That's usually when they're used. I'll share with you that sometimes you don't want to be using them. There are a lot of agents and sellers that are anti-escalation clauses. I would recommend that you ask for permission from the listing agent. Is it okay if I use an escalation clause? They'll tell you yes, yes, no, no. Yet ask them if it's okay before you actually just submit it. And there's some agents don't like it, don't want it. So don't assume that it's okay to use every single time. Just I would ask. It's the same thing with the closing date, and the same thing with highest and best. Highest and best is the best tool for a listing agent and a seller to squeeze top dollar out of a buyer and a buyer's agent. Yet there are times, like again, you want to call the listing agent and ask them. They know if they're going to do it or not. Do you anticipate conducting highest and best, or is the seller just going to select an offer? Simple question. They will answer you. They will tell you. In a rare exception, they'll tell you, I don't know yet. I'll let you know. Okay, fine. Ask the question. What you don't want happening is that you assume they're going to have a highest and best, and you communicate to your buyers, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Buyer, as a strategy, let's submit an offer at asking, and then right before the deadline, we're going to update our offer, submit our best offer right before the deadline, and lo and behold, the seller does not do a highest and best. They select an offer, don't do a highest and best. You didn't have the opportunity to update your offer, and they select an offer that's not your buyer's offer. And congratulations, you're not going to have a happy buyer, and you're probably this much closer to getting fired, and we don't want that. So don't assume, ask, right? Letter to sellers, it's on here for a reason. I never know if I should put an asterisk next to this one or not. NAR definitely recommends against it. I would say Ask your brokers if you can use it, not use it. What I can share with you is that it does strengthen offers. All right, and the reason I can say that, and it is a tool to strengthen offers, is because if you speak to enough agents that have utilized these letters, love letters, bio letters, whatever, letters to sellers, whatever you want to call them, many will share with you, hey, my buyers were able to obtain a property because of this letter. If they did not submit the letter, they wouldn't have obtained the property or the accepted offer otherwise. That letter was the difference between obtaining and not obtaining. And many agents will share those stories with you. Yet we need to be careful with these letters because it opens up liability, discrimination, lawsuits, all that stuff. So we need to be careful with the letters. So minimum information, pictures, so it doesn't open up any liability, right? Many times I'll also have the lenders also send these letters. It's not, you can call it a love letter, or the lender, if they make that phone call or send that letter, they can also strengthen the offer. If a lender reaches out or speaks to a listing agent and says, hey, these buyers, they have very solid jobs, they're very qualified, I have all their financial documentation, they're good to go, tell me what you need, I'll make it happen. The lenders can also do that as well. They can also send the love letters, or they can send, do the phone calls, have those conversations as well. That will also strengthen offers. And that leads me to the next point. Can a lender strengthen or weaken an offer? And the answer is yes. Now, who the lender is can strengthen or weaken an offer. They definitely can, okay? And there's other ways that a lender can strengthen an offer. Another way a lender can strengthen an offer is definitely get their clients through underwriting. If the client is the buyers through underwriting, it gives us as agents the ability to reach out to listing agents and say, hey, our buyers, they're through underwriting, they only have 3 conditions to close. That's information of who the title company is, the appraisal, and homeowner's insurance policy receipt. So typically when a client is through underwriting, they've already fulfilled all of the conditions of the loan. They only have 3 conditions to satisfy in order to close. Okay. And it's the title company information, the homeowner's insurance policy, and the appraisal. So it puts you in a very strong position. It does strengthen your offer because now all of a sudden it gives the seller and the listing agent peace of mind. Oh, okay, this is closing. They've already submitted all their conditions. So there is a way to get clients through underwriting on the buy side. Okay, you just have to speak to the lender about it. It does put you in a good position. So who the lender is and what they can do does strengthen or weaken an offer. Deposits are small ways to strengthen or weaken an offer, and we can discover that just by asking a simple question. Well, if I put a 5% additional deposit, or if I put a 20% additional deposit, which one's stronger? Which one looks more serious? Well, the high. Not that I put 20, I put between 5 and 10. And I prefer my clients for it when we're talking about the buying process. Hey, listen, the additional deposit can be between 5 and 10. Unless they're only putting 3.5% down, then you're going to say, okay, you're going to put 3.5% down additional deposit 10 days after completion of return review, yada, yada, yada. And then the remaining balance here, closing costs, will be due at closing, right? So unless they want to give 4% or 5% upfront, then they don't have to worry about the closing costs at the end. So, we're going to now to play with it. Now I can also share with you, well, what if it's an initial deposit? We don't do additional deposit around here, right? It's not customary around here. Maybe South Jersey they do, yet around here we don't really do additional deposits. What if you changed it from an additional deposit to initial deposit? Does that show an increased level of seriousness? I would think so, right? You're coming up right now. It's a very pro-buyer process. Buyer can cancel for any reason during return review or even before acceptance. So what does it matter?
I'm not during the contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, instead of 10 days after completion of return review, you can initial deposits are typically you'll put in or just leave the default within 3 days of acceptance. You'll provide the initial deposit, and then you're good to go. What happens if it doesn't work out? You get it. The buyer can cancel without penalty. So there's different ways to strengthen offer, and when it comes to deposits. Leasebacks, also known as use of occupancies, is a big way when we're talking to the listing agents about what's the seller's preferred closing date. They might say where they're moving to, what their timeline is, and this is also where they might add that the seller actually needs to sell the house in order to buy a house to where they're moving to. Well, ding, ding, ding. If that is the case, and we approach those listing agents to say, hey, Mr. Mrs. Listing Agent, will it benefit your seller if we close on the property? They put the equity in their pocket. They stay in the property for a week, a month, 2 months. The limit is usually 2 months per lenders. Will that be helpful to them? Now they can go search for a home, but that is sale contingency. Will that be of value to them? Yeah, that helps strengthen your offer. If your buyers are flexible to it, we also have to explain to our buyers what this means, right? It will change the relationship from a buyer-seller relationship to a pseudo. It's not a completely landlord-tenant relationship. It's a use of occupancy slightly different. Yet you have to understand what all this means, right?
So what do you get the use of occupancy?
A use of occupancy, typically the agreement is whatever the overhead of the buyer is minus the principal. It doesn't have to be that way. That's typically what they're agreed upon. It ends up being probably $90 a day, $100 a day, $125. It just depends on, it's always per agreement. It doesn't have to be. I can tell you that's normally the case. The attorneys will discover the daily rate based on whatever the overhead tends to be, minus the principal. Now, there's a reason for that. The principal is actually their money. So while you're paying the mortgage amount, principal, interest, insurance, all that, the principal is actually your money. It's your equity. So the seller doesn't necessarily need to pay for this.
When the lease back thing, we are give you the beginning time is the offer. We are saying
it's always better to come to agreement in the beginning.
Okay.
Get everybody on the same page, including the attorneys. That's the last thing I'm going to add before I end, because she has to come in for her class, for the contracts class. You want to improve the likelihood this gets to the closing table. Make sure you get everybody, which means the attorneys, on the same page from the get-go. If you came to agreement on a leaseback, let them know you came to agreement on a leaseback when you're sending them the executed agreement. If you came to agreement that they're limiting or waiving their appraisal contingency, make sure you communicate to the attorneys that they're limiting or waiving. Make sure you get everybody on the same page, not even the attorneys, because what you don't want happening is they were unaware that this term was agreed upon. And then during attorney review, they don't mention it at all, or it's a surprise, and all of a sudden the attorney gives you pushback on it. Now you're decreasing the likelihood this actually goes through. So get everybody on the same page from the get-go. Whatever agreement you made as far as terms, let them know.
Which is the best, the lease back option? We put that before the alternative review for the daily, or
the attorneys, I leave it in their hands. They know it. You trust that they know what they're doing, especially if you want to make the recommendation to the attorney, so you know that they're real estate attorneys. They do this day in and day out. And when it comes to those things, it's automatic. Like they know exactly what to do. They probably know the other attorney. It goes a long way. So definitely make sure it's a real estate attorney. We can handle that objection, because I do call it an objection, up front. It's just a simple question. When you're talking about the buying process up front with the buyers, you're going to ask them, do you know who's going to represent you as an attorney? And they may say, typically they say no. On our occasion, they say yes. And that's when you can say, well, would it be helpful to you? Will it benefit you if I send you a list of recommended attorneys, top attorneys that is going to take very good care of you? Will that be helpful to you? And they'll say yes. They'll say, great, I'm going to email it to you. I'm going to text it to you. I'm going to whatever. And now all of a sudden, your recommendations are more likely to be selected. Yet don't do it on last minute. Don't wait for an accepted offer and then they're scrambling. And then your client happens to be the type of personality that wants to speak to the attorney, interview the attorneys, meet with the attorneys. You're going to lose that offer. They're going to drag their feet. They're going to take too long. You want to handle that. That's why I call it an objection. You want to handle that objection up front. All right.
And the first time we are asking, do you have an attorney? Do you need any, the asking recommendation? Maybe that time is the more things.
So that's that. And I think should I just leave this on?
She's coming here.
Yeah, Judith's gonna come in here.
Okay.
She's gonna use her own, I think I should just maybe leave it on. Let's ask her real quick. Should I disconnect Amanda?
Let me do this.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I should just leave it on or should I
Nope.
disconnect.
All good. So what we're gonna do is stop the recording.